Hi there, Ronnie here, Amber's Knight, coming at you with another overview of a set of wargames rules. The wargames rules in question this time being Warfare in the Age of Reason from Emperor's Press. Um, I will admit something, I bought this completely on a whim. Some friends of mine had a game store, well, it's a model shop that sold games as well, and I saw it there and I thought, I'm going to buy this. It was from the same period people who produced the best medieval war game I've ever played, which is Revenge. Um, and I liked the idea of a game system that I could run American War of Independence with, Jacobite Rebellion, French Indian Wars. Now I must admit I have the uh, the knowledge that I have of those periods you could put on the back of a postage stamp and still leave, enough for the Gettysburg Address. Um, but I bought it very much as a whim. Um, and I'm sometimes when I buy games on a whim, I end up going and realizing, it wasn't really what I wanted, or it wasn't really a game system I liked, and I've ended up getting rid of it. In the case of Age of Reason, however, I've kept it, and the reason I've kept it is that it's actually a really lovely system to run. Uh, First off, it's perfect for an evening game. The Wargames Club that I went to at the time was only open for 3 hours, which really didn't give much time for big games, which I will admit I prefer. So you were looking at games that could be resolved fairly quickly, or you could have full games with lesser figures, which is what ended up happening with Age of Reason. Age of Reason takes place over 12 turns, and that's it. At the end of the 12 turns, either one army's won or you count it all up and somebody's labelled the victor. This stops, I suppose, games going on ad infinitum. I suppose if you wanted to, you could easily push the game beyond 12 turns, or less than if you wanted to. The actual game system itself I found very simple. It uses six-sided die. It doesn't use average dice, just normal 16. And the resolution for combat, because let's be honest, it's a war game, the resolution is fairly simple. Um, you have 1d6. You start off with a pool of dice, depending on the number of figures and the grade, the experience of the unit. There will be modifiers, plus and minus, and that will give you a final pool of dice that you roll and add up. And for every 6, the opponent loses a figure. That is for small arms fire and for melee, but I'll get back to melee because it's a little different. For artillery fire, it's every multiple of 12. So you roll all your dice, if it's small arms fire, you roll a total of 23. Your opponent suffers 3 casualties. The remainder is forgotten about. It makes things very simple. It's very easy to see how many casualties you've scored. Morale works similarly. Pull a die. You get 1 dice, you start with a certain rating. Morale rating, modifiers, one way or the other, you roll your die. You either succeed or you don't. Melee is slightly different. And it's the one strange oddity of this system, and it is so easy to get around. Melee starts with a number of pips, if you like, based on the number of figures that you have actually in melee. So if you have, say, 11 figures involved in a melee, the dice that you would roll is one full dice, which could yield any number from 1 to 6, and another die that can only yield from 1 to 5 because you have 5 extra. If you had 14 figures, it would be 2 full die and a dice that could only roll 1 or 2. Now in the rules it says that you should have these individual dice, that you should have a dice that can only roll a 1. You know, a 6-sided dice where everything else is inked out except the 1. Another 6-sided dice where everything's inked out except the 1 and the 2, and so on. This is, you know, obviously it's a barking mad idea. All you need to do is, if you have that odd die, is just roll a different shaped die or a different color die to the one you've got, or roll all the normal die first and then roll the special die, and you know what it's going to be. If you have a remainder of 4 figures, you roll the die, and if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, you add it on, and if you roll a 5 or a 6, you ignore it. So that's not a problem. It looks very strange, and the first couple of times you play it, you do sort of scratch your head. But I found the game very quick, very simple, very easy to use, very easy to play. There are people who don't like that period, and I can understand why. It's not a game I use all the time, but I like it, and I reckon you could probably get away with running Napoleonics on it. Just about. You might have to make the odd little adjustment. You could certainly do the early period, before the big Peninsula War that everyone knows about. Napoleon, the early days. I have 2 of the supplements. I think there's only 2 so far. There might be a third. We have Campaigns and Battles from the Age of Reason, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a campaign and it is several battles. Lots of errata for the main game and so forth. And the very original and stunningly titled More Campaigns and Battles for Age of Reason Volume 2. Very strange that they put Volume 2 because, more campaign and battles kind of gets in there. The one advantage to this particular one, other than the fact that it has more campaigns and battles, is the fact that it gives you rules for naval combat for the period. Which, for anyone who enjoyed the television series Hornblower, or who enjoys something like Master and Commander, these rules are always good to have. Overall, I like those rules. I enjoy them. They're very simple, straightforward. That weird mechanic involved with melee combat is very easy to incorporate, and after a couple of turns it just becomes second nature. If you like the idea of the 7 Years' War, if you like the idea of doing Clive of India, if you like the idea of wargaming the American War of Independence, or the French Indian Wars, or the Jacobite uprisings, or indeed the early Napoleonics, I would say try and find this. It's not too bad. I know there's an awful lot of games now covering what they call the Black Powder period, which run right through from this period through the whole Napoleonic period and into sort of American Civil War period. And if those games are working for you, great, fine, go for it. But if you're interested in a set of rules that work, and they do work, and you don't have any of these other ones and are looking for a game that has a nice feel to it, that's very easy to use, and has a good feel to it, then I would say check it out. So I would say Warfare in the Age of Reason. Big thumbs up from me.